this next session's about connectivity, and the NBN's been a great source of amusement and frustration and optimism, and for 6 years now. And Lalla Mackenzie's joined us, and she says she's moved from, you know, people being quite sort of ambivalent about it, people being quite negative about it, to now we're quite ambivalent about it. So it is a massive opportunity. It is a massive thing that we need, or is it? Isn't it? Let's find out. So please welcome Lalla Mackenzie from the National Broadband Network.
Hi everyone. I hope I am going to amuse you. I don't really think that the NBN's amusing, but possibly it is to many of you that may have had to wait for a connection. So we'll go through that as well. Firstly, let me thank you all for having NBN here today, and particularly myself. I'm based in Tasmania, and I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. And before anyone asks me any questions about the NBN, I am absolutely only utilising Sky Muster, the satellite network, at my property. So if anyone has any concerns or worries, I know exactly what you're feeling. So we'll go through that as we go through. Also, I'd like to do a massive shout out to Eleanor, who organised for me to come here today and has just been amazing, so thank you. I'm here to talk about connectivity. I'm going to go through all of the stages of the NBN and what we offer and things like that, but more importantly, I'm going to talk about the stuff that's attached to it once it is connected. At the end of the day, it's either a fat, a skinny, a piece of air, or it's a satellite sitting in the air. To you guys, it means nothing, really, apart from that connectivity into your house, but I'll go through what that actually looks like. So, we do have goals at NBN, surprisingly. Our 2020 goals, we will be completed this amazing journey by 2020. We are going to offer universal wholesale access, broadband, to the entire country. We will deliver 25 megabits per second as a minimum wholesale speed to all premises around Australia, and we will have 8 million active end users at the end of this journey. We will spend less than $30 billion of taxpayers' money, and I'm looking for any smiles within that. $30 billion doesn't sound like a lot when you say it, does it? But imagine just having it in this room. It would be amazing. More importantly, we are going to generate $4 billion of annual revenue once we are finalised. Let's actually talk about the NBN and the premises that we are covering. So, 3% of the population of Australia will be receiving our Sky Muster satellite service. 5% of the population will be receiving our fixed wireless service, and the rest of the population of Australia will be receiving a fixed line technology. That fixed line technology actually creates more drama than Sky Muster and our fixed wireless network ever could. We offer so many solutions under that fixed line technology now. Initially, when we started, it was going to be fibre to the premise. With the 2 elections ago, with the government change, we actually now have fibre to the node, fibre to the basement. We're utilising HFC technology in those regions that have it available as well. And I'm not going to debate the technology type with you. This is what we are rolling out. Australia voted, and we are a government business enterprise. So, our satellite network. How does it actually work? We place a giant satellite. We launched it on the 1st of October last year. On the 28th of April this year, we launched commercial services on that satellite. We now have over 3,000 people connected to our satellite, and we expect that that will double over the next few months. Our fixed wireless network runs pretty much how we place a tower in an area. As long as that tower has direct line of sight to premises in that area, they will be receiving our fixed wireless network. So by 2020, we anticipate that our fixed wireless network will have 600,000 eligible premises that can connect into it, and our satellite network will have 400,000. To be fair, we expect that only 320,000 will take up the fixed wireless solution, and only 240,000 by 2020 will have taken up our satellite solution. The reason for that are many. Talking to Darren, that's going to come up very shortly, he's provided his own solution for his own network that he will be providing. Other people choose to use mobile technology. Other people, surprisingly enough, are just not interested in broadband yet. And we anticipate by 2020, you know, I'd love to say that every single Australian will take up the national broadband network, but I know absolutely fundamentally that will not happen. How it works is we have a satellite in the sky for our satellite network. That signal actually goes back to one of our base stations which we have built across the entire nation. In every single state we have a base station. You may think that if the WA base station runs the WA traffic, for example. Absolutely not. I live in an island, 55 kilometres from Hobart CBD, and my satellite signal actually bounces off the Sydney base station. And that's because where we sit in the equator, and all of the, I've just lost my word then, all of the streams that come from that satellite and all of the beams, our beam actually bounces off the Sydney one. So our satellite network, anyone here been on the Interim satellite solution? No, really? Okay. Yes, good. I can see your face. I know that you have now because it was very pained. The Interim satellite solution, whilst the intent was good, and I promise you, it wasn't something that we purpose-built. We actually had to lease space until our own satellite was built, designed, built and launched. So the Interim satellite solution had one national and 10 spot beams. So the spot beams had a 1 degree look angle. It was a really wide beam that was shared by a lot of people, which meant that a lot of data that was pushed back up and forth from that beam took a long time to happen. And I think I would be fair to say that most of those people would have experienced around 2 to 3 megabits per second maximum at any time because everyone else was sharing that. With the new long-term satellite solution, or has now been trademarked as SkyMuster, which was named by a young student called Bailey Brooks from the Northern Territory that actually learns via School of the Air. We put it out to all of the School of the Air children and said, name your satellite because you guys will be the ones that own it. So that's long-term satellite solution, SkyMuster, has 101 beams per satellite with a small spot beam degree look angle of 0.3. That's only the first satellite. On the 1st of October this year, we're launching our second satellite, which will go into operation in around April next year. And I'll go through what we're going to do with that satellite as we go. The analogy that everyone uses is very different no matter who you talk to from NBN. Mine is that we now have we've gone from one highway that only had 10 little roads off it going to everywhere in Australia. We now have 101 highways with all of these little spot beams that we can actually get out of. And with the second satellite being launched on the 1st of October, we will now have 202 spot beams. This is something this country's never seen before. And I'll go through what that actually means. We do utilise state-of-the-art technology. So we are not your service provider. We're a wholesaler. Our customers are the 70 telephone or internet service providers that now operate under the National Broadband Network. We have stringent guidelines for anyone that wants to offer services on our network, regardless of technology type. And I can tell you that more service providers are coming on every single day, and more people are coming to us every single day asking if they can be service providers themselves, such as local government authorities or large sporting organisations have recently approached us as well. So we've built these 10 base stations all over the country, which are called our NBN gateways. Those gateways go back up to our SkyMuster solution that is in the sky, which goes down to a dish that's installed on every single property around Australia for an eligible service, and then we come and we install the internal equipment at the same time. Your modem plugs into that equipment. How do you get to that stage with us? How do you get us to come out and do that stuff? I'll go through what that actually looks like as well. So the setup example that we're showing there is a satellite dish with a wall outlet that we actually install with the NBN supplied network termination device, which has 4 Ethernet ports and 2 telephony ports. For anyone that's in a SkyMuster area or a fixed wireless area, you get the best of both worlds if you choose to have so. Your copper will remain in the ground for the foreseeable future, and you can also utilise the NBN broadband. For anyone that's in a fixed line technology world, regardless of what fixed line technology it is, 18 months to the day after we finish in that region, the copper will be decommissioned, whether you choose to accept it or not. The reasoning for that is we have been tasked by the federal government to our universal goal, to actually bring broadband to all of Australia. There can't be 2 concurrent technologies running side by side with us, the taxpayers, investing all of that money into it. So for those people that do have a satellite or a fixed wireless solution, if you choose to do so, you can keep your copper in the ground for your telephony calls. I can tell you in my household, I've chosen not to, and I do everything through my SkyMuster service. The installation process. You need to go to our website and you need to check for eligibility. If you go to nbnco.com.au, you have a little box there that you can punch in your address. You press the check home button. It will tell you what type of technology and what type of time frame, and it will also take you to the list of service providers that are available for your region. You need to place your order with one of those service providers. As I mentioned earlier, we are a wholesaler. Our customers are the Telstras, the Optuses, the Ionets, the Harbour ISPs, you name it, they're our customers. Our only relationship with you, the consumer, is coming to do that internal wiring and to make sure that the equipment is up and operational before we leave. Once you have contacted a service provider of your choice, they will then contact our back of house and we will send a technician out there, and you will be informed throughout all of that process. The equipment installation timeframes for our Sky Muster service are quite varied. So if you live in an urban geography, for example, 10,000 people or more, you can expect a connection timeframe within 20 business days. If you're in a major rural area of 2,501 to 9,999, 20 business days again. A minor rural, 201 to 2,500, 35 business days. Isolated, so in the area or very remote or remote bands, it will be 90-day business connection for you. And limited access, so any location that can't be reasonably accessed, such as Lord Howe Island, for example, you can't expect a 20-day business turnaround. I've actually been encouraging communities that when the Sky Muster service was available, it's really handy if a community or a whole group of you actually place an order all at once. The intent of that is to save truck rolls and to get more technicians out there, we would rather send a technician or a few out there for a whole week to live, breathe in your community so that they can do all of the community at once so that they don't have to come back again. So if you do have any access to anyone in your community that you think would like that solution, I would recommend that in all circumstances. Here's the one that everyone hates, the FUP. I did say FUP. The Fair Use Policy. Anyone that has been on the Interim satellite solution in about April last year woke up to a very crazy time. Up until that point, we had not enforced the Fair Use Policy on any Interim satellite solution around the country. As you can appreciate, some people are really data hungry. They took absolutely more than they were allocated and they made it really bad for the rest of you. We now have to enforce the Fair Use Policy to our retail service providers, who will in turn enforce it with you. So, depending on which retail service provider you go with, I really recommend that you look at what their peak times are and what their usage is for those peak times and what their off-peak usage is for those times as well. It actually makes you think differently and work differently when you have that fair use policy in play. And I'm an example of that. I am based at Bruny Island, and as I learned today, we only have 600 residents and I have about 4.5 acres, and I have to tell you I've only lived there for 4 weeks, and I met my next door neighbour today. It was the most bizarre moment of my life. Hi, Ross. And I have to tell you, I posted it on Facebook at work because no one would have believed this story. But what happens within that fair use policy is, so I do live on Bruny Island. My partner also works for NBN as the National Technical Specialist, so we both have pretty demanding jobs. We have a flexible working arrangement for NBN, which is amazing. They really trust and value us as employees, and we get to work from our beautiful island for 3 days a week. I can tell you, with the fair use policy in play, we really look at what we do with our data during days, because both of us on that network, even using a minimum of 3 gig per day, it gets really difficult. So I can tell you video on demand is a thing of the past, and we're definitely not watching Netflix at this point, unless we want to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and Narcos is just about to start, so I know we will be binging at that time. Sorry, Ross. So if you do have issues with the fair use policy, you're preaching to the converted, because I absolutely feel it. I'm hoping that with the launch of the second satellite that will happen in October, that for us data-hungry hounds, we will be given more data, the peak times will change or something will change. And I am your voice back into the network, let me tell you, because it is really difficult to work from home 3 days a week when you have absolutely no internet coverage. So that kind of makes it a bit moot. So it is live, and it is starting to transform the bush with satellite services growing. We have so many people that have ordered services, and we have so many people that need to migrate from the Interim satellite solution, which will be switched off at the beginning of next year, over to our Sky Muster service or our fixed wireless service for those regions. What does it actually mean? What are people doing with it? So we launched a proof of concept with 5 Northern Territory locations in late 2015, including higher speeds with the Interim satellite solution web enhanced services. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating community Wi-Fi spots utilising the Sky Muster service, which some communities have never had before. We're taking that data and we're looking at it and finding ways to refine the Sky Muster service and ways that we can serve communities better. So we're still in that discovery stage, or the ideation stage. There's a word for you. It's a new buzzword that's buzzing around NBN, ideation. I'm like, oh, really? It's just an idea. But anyway, so essentially, we're trialling a lot of things from a community Wi-Fi perspective at the moment. Our education port is the thing that I'm most proud of at NBN. I'm a mother of 2, both of them at university at the moment, and one of them is with the Federal Police, the AFP, and he actually works in the cybersecurity division. So what he does, and you know, he had to go over to the mainland, Melbourne, to actually continue his study because we didn't have that available in Tasmania at the time. I can tell you right now that with the NBN, we have more people moving to Tasmania for e-changes than we've ever had before. And as I was saying to Ross today, born and bred in Tassie, always wanted to live on Bruny Island and couldn't because there was no telecommunications. So Sky Muster actually opened up that opportunity for me as well. So I do have 2 kids. More importantly, I have 3 grandkids. And I can tell you, I absolutely never want them to leave Tasmania. And for me, now they have the chance to study whatever they like based in our amazing state and should never have to leave. Do you know what? I should have dropped that at the beginning, shouldn't I? Yeah, right. Okay, I do. Show you photos, we can Skype them now. What we did was we went back to every state and education department around the entire country and we said, you know what, we're willing on our Sky Muster services for those children that only learn via School of the Air with no bricks and mortar classroom to have a dedicated education port on our wireless NTD that is installed internally in everyone's property. For those children that only have that way of learning via School of the Air, they now have a 50 gig allowance that actually comes directly into their own port that does not affect the family's bandwidth or their data limit. The intent of that is because under the ISS, the Interim satellite solution, for example, the family would use up all of their bandwidth, the kids couldn't study anymore. It's not like they can just drive down the road and there's the local school. So every child that learns via School of the Air now has a dedicated port with a 50 gig limit. That means that they will no longer have to suffer with no education whilst the family's bandwidth runs out. When my time's up at NBN, whenever that may be, I can tell you I will walk out with my head held high because I had a part in that and I know that that is going to make a difference for years to come. These are the service providers. We currently have 7 service providers and we're just about to have another one come on at the middle of next month, and it's one of the big boys that have actually decided to play in the Sky Muster space. What I can say to you is, up until, when was it? April this year, we had the most expensive broadband, satellite broadband in the entire world. No joke, go back and Google it. I can tell you right now, we are the least expensive in the entire world. On average, in America, for example, I did some research before I came here today. They're paying on average around $200 for around 40 gig on their satellite solution, getting around, 11 megabits per second at max. I can tell you with my own service, I have 135 gig, 60 in the off-peak, and I pay $60. I don't know about you, but that comparison to what we used to pay, which was around that $200 mark for hardly anything, and I can show you my speed test because I did one before I left the house on Monday, I get 21 megabits per second on average with around 4 megabits up. That was better. I lived 11 minutes out of the CBD of Hobart right up until that moment when I moved 4 weeks ago. I was getting around 11 megabits per second if I was lucky. If the kids come home from school, it'd go down to around 7. So it's pretty impressive that I now get to live where I want and get better broadband than most cities around Australia do. Easiest way to check what type of service you will be receiving and in what type of time frame is to go to our website, nbnco.com.au. Gives you a function there to place your address in there. Go check home. Once you do that, it will either tell you if we're there, if we're building, or if there's nothing there yet, it means that your community has not been announced. Don't forget, we don't finish this project until 2020. So doesn't mean you're not getting it, just means you haven't been announced as to what type of technology yet. I can assure you, though, that if Sky Muster isn't on there, chances are you're not getting Sky Muster because all of those services have been done. If it isn't on there, I would recommend every one of you to sign up for our newsletter. We'll keep you informed as we move through your community. Every step of the way, we'll let you know where we're at, where we're going, what time frame we're going to be completed. We'll let you know what service providers you then have available, and we'll also, for anyone that has any back to base or medical alarms, we'll actually make the journey seamless so that there is no down between the two services being activated. One thing I'd like to talk about, has anyone, I know a few of you have, but I have this amazing big blue truck parked out the back now. It's our road muster service. We've commissioned 5 NBN satellite trucks that will travel around the entire nation from July until December. We will cover around 21,000 kilometres around Australia, and we will visit 120 towns. So Muster 1, which is the Victorian car, which I drove up yesterday, is parked in the car park, and we are directly feeding off the satellite solution. I can tell you today, I Skyped the muster truck that's at the Henty Field Day, and I Skyped the muster truck that's currently in Adelaide, and we did that, all of us, over the Sky Muster solution. And we were getting roughly around 22 megabits per second. So please, it's here tomorrow, it's not here tonight because I've packed it up and put it away, but from tomorrow morning from 8 o'clock, please come and visit it. For those that haven't experienced Sky Muster, this is your one chance to do so, and I tell you, you won't regret it. Over to you guys. Hit me. Is this on?
Righto, you heard her say it. Oh, we've got one ready. Stand clear. Way to go. Who are you?
And I'm sorry, I have a couple of questions, but I'm Kylie Stretton, and I'm a co-founder of an advocacy group called Better Internet
really
for
well.
Rural, Regional and Remote Australia.
Really well.
So you're talking about community installations, trying to get a group together. How do we get that to work? Because currently we, on cattle stations, we might have 3 families, and we're so often finding that the family that's got the children in the schoolroom are the family that are last to be installed. So how can we get that streamlined where we can get these installations happening at one time, because as it is, we've got installations happening 3 months apart on the same property.
Yeah, I know that. What I can say to you is all that you have to do is place the orders all at the same time with the same ARSP. They'll see the queue come into them and they'll be assigned the work. So that's the easiest advice I could give you, and that's not me trying to brush it aside. There's no direct science for this. There's no correct way of doing it. I'm just encouraging as many people from as many communities as possible. If you all band together and try and place your orders at the same time, and if they are with the same RSP, then you can...
Yeah, but that limits the choice then. There is a choice of RSPs. The same people installing it will do it, but just if we're choosing different companies, which is our right...
Absolutely, and I'm not telling you that it's not. I'm just saying that that's a way to try and expedite it.
And it still doesn't happen that way though. Like 2 people might sign up through Sky Mesh on the same property and they're still 3 months apart.
I know that.
So
same happens in fibre land, same happens in fixed wireless land. Unfortunately, us using the Sky Muster solution, we are no different than anyone else.
Yep.
We have people that have waited for a fibre connection for over 1,000 days because we can't get down their driveway or dig anything up.
But they don't have their kids missing out on school.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay,
Yeah. No, she had another question.
I have a couple, if that's okay.
Well,
I'll be really
so do a lot of people.
But Burr really have a lot of questions and they do a lot of great work. So
Okay,
please,
there you go.
thank you.
I'm
One more.
representing 7,500 people across the country asking these
Sure.
questions. So you said we need to be careful of our data usage, and this ties into the education port as well. Education port isn't yet available for all students studying. It's only if you are registered through a state school of distance education. So students who are studying via homeschooling or their parents write their own curriculum don't have access to that education port. Now in Charters Towers we have a family of 4 boys between kindy and year 10. The year 10 boy is now getting up at 1 a.m. in the morning to use the off-peak data so that his kindy brother doesn't miss out on his special needs support. How do you tell, what do you suggest for these families to do to get their maximum usage and how to watch it? Because these boys have been falling behind for so long because of ISS. They don't have education port, and they might get it soon. We are lobbying very hard for that, but each day...
Get to the point.
Yeah, so how do you suggest that they use their how do they be careful, and is there any tips that NBN can give to use their off-peak data?
Yeah, and it's a really great question. It is one that's affecting many Australians, so I absolutely feel it. We don't determine eligibility for it. I'd like to clarify that up front.
Yeah.
Each state Department of Education tells us who is eligible, so they need to go back and lobby there very, very hard. That would be my first suggestion. I don't have a great answer for you. All I can say to you is we just need to be careful when we're using it, and it doesn't give you any peace in saying that. I know that. I'm hoping, and I'm really hoping, that with the launch of the second satellite that we won't be in that position anymore. And I have been told that that should happen. I can't disclose any details, but honestly, I absolutely feel I'm not trying to brush you aside, and we absolutely respect everything that we refer people to your website. That's how great it is.
Which is a bit scary though, because we are only volunteers. We're using our own.
Okay. Look, this isn't a hobby horse thing. So can we give somebody else a turn, and we'll come back to you if we've got time?
I think my question's a bit easier. Just a general interest. Is the copper being pulled out or being repurposed, or?
Great question. Everyone's going, hey, copper's worth a lot of money. Can we take it out ourselves and keep it? Do you know what? We're not Telstra. We don't own it. Unless we're using fibre to the node, we're still only leasing that piece of copper. Telstra have determined that it will be switched off. So it's switched off back at the point of interconnect, or the old school Telstra exchange, for example. Do I think Telstra are going to go around the whole country and take it out? I'd say not. No one heard me say that.
Okay, next one. Who have we got? Down the back there with the black? Yeah. Am I missing any over here yet?
From DAFA. Just a quick question. You've talked about throughput of the satellites.
Yeah.
What about ping, like latency?
Yeah, 600. Pings at around 600. Everyone goes, that's a high ping. I can tell you, you can notice it for about the first 2 sentences, then it's gone. You don't even notice it anymore. And I know that categorically. You can come out to the Sky Muster truck tomorrow morning and try it for yourself.
Yeah.
Pings at around 597.
Yeah, so pretty bad.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
it's half a second.
Bad compared to any other form of internet.
Well, it is, but you know what? It's a satellite service. It has 35,000 kilometres to go to. I don't know about you, but even driving or running, I couldn't do that in 600 seconds. Or 600 milliseconds, actually, half a second. So, yeah.
Okay. Any others?
Oh, come on. I've travelled from Bruny Island. Ross, you must have one.
Got one here, yeah.
My name is Rainer Prins. I live in Narrabri. I work in the cotton industry. Question for you. For farmers that live in the rural area, they might have peak demands for data usage in certain months of the year, say when they're planting or when they're harvesting, when they have to use or transmit large amounts of data. Will there be any sort of provision for them? Or
I'm absolutely praying that will come with the second satellite solution. Nothing's been finalised with that second satellite solution. The initial intent was that it was going to be used for government services or government schools or public interest premises. I can tell you we're going to use a lot more with that now. So I can't give you any guarantees. I'm standing here being as open and as honest as I can, but I am absolutely praying that comes with that second one, that there's a business grade of that satellite solution offered with for people like me that are data hungry. So I'm hoping that will change that.
Thank you.
Okay, any others before I go back to our first questioner? Down the back. Nick,
with the limitations of the single satellite in each house or whatever, can you have multiple satellites?
Great question. Love it. Can you have multiple connections, not satellites, because we've only got one?
Well,
nearly
like
2.
dishes.
Dishes, perfect. So there is a rule of thumb within this. If you have another premise located on the property that's more than 600 metres away or is lived in for more than 6 months of the year or used as a business, you can have any number of connections on that property. I'll give you one example. There's a guy, anyone here know Andrew Bate, Swarm Farm Technologies? Amazing man, uses a huge amount of data, needs more than we can ever give him. He had something like 50 connections on his property, all done individually because they're all placed all around the property. So yeah, it can happen. And if anyone has that issue, I know that Seftons actually have my contact details. All it requires is for me to create a new location ID, which is what we use in our system to get that happening. So feel free to go back through Seftons if you have any issues.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
do you want a last one?
Yeah.
Come on, don't let me down.
Go, ask me one, go.
One quick one. Hang on, wait for the microphone. Yeah. Thank you.
Currently, I think the figure is 20% of new installations are actually not working as they're getting installed.
That's not right.
It's not right? What is it?
It's not that figure, because I tell you what, we'd be sitting in a group every day getting spanked. There's no way that's happening.
But do you,
No way that's happening.
so, well, I should say...
I'm not saying that every single connection goes through, but with the amount of connections that we're doing a week, which is around 10,000 now, there's no way we're...
10,000 a week? I thought there was only 30,000 hooked up so far.
We're now at peak where we're doing 10,000 connections a week.
And it has, but okay, so it has improved because it was quite a few.
And I agree with you that there was, but let me tell you, I've been with the company now since it started. The early days when fibre was rolled out in Tasmania, I can tell you that there are still people waiting for those connections.
No, that's okay, just as long as it's going to get better, because it is, like you said before,
10,000 connections a month
is frustrating.
10,000 connections a month. Take the week back out. 10,000 connections a month is huge.
Yep. No, that's okay, because it is very frustrating when it's not working.
I know. I had to wait for 3 weeks for my no work for NBN.
That says a lot.
Well
Thank
done,
you,
Lalla.
Lalla.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Lalla. That was tough.